Welcome back as we continue our coverage of the SONA debate in the National Assembly. Joe McGluwa of the Independent Democrats said the president had given the nation a glimmer of hope, especially with his endorsement of the National Development Plan. But the challenge for the president and the country continued to lie in the implementation and delivery. He said the opposition will make sure that no one used the plan for personal and financial gain.
Speaker, we do love this country. And together with the president, we want it to work. Ons is lief vir hierdie land. En saam met die president wil ons hê dat dit moet werk. We would like to assure you that we support all efforts made by government to construct a clear plan for our country's future. We therefore place much hope in you, Mr. President, to make this plan a reality for us. Speaker, at the inaugural meeting of the National Planning Commission on 11 May 2010, the President stated, and I quote, "The establishment of a National Planning Commission is our promise to the people of South Africa, and we are building a state that will grow the economy, reduce poverty, and improve the quality of life for our citizens," unquote. As we are concerned as members of Parliament about the funding of these projects, we will use our oversight role to ensure that no one will use your announcement, Mr. President, as a platform to loot state funds from the poor.
The leader of the United Democratic Movement, General Bantu Holomisa, said the level of inequality between the haves and have-nots was still on the increase. Economic freedom had not yet been achieved, but the solutions to the economic transformation remained difficult to find, as even the big companies did not want to come on board. Therefore, the General said all political parties should be involved in that process.
The 2012 State of the Nation address clearly demonstrates that government has finally woken up to the reality that the fate of South Africans could no longer be left to the free market system alone. Government has a duty to invest in its economy through projects like infrastructure development. The private sector seems to have no willingness to invest in the development of the infrastructure of previously disadvantaged communities. Even companies that have capacity to do so, like Anglo-American, delisted from our stock exchange in favor of foreign ones, without any prospect of the funds coming back to the South African economy. Perhaps, in line with your statement during the ANC centenary celebrations in Mangaung, where you called for a national dialogue on the country's pressing issues, as leaders of political parties represented in Parliament, we should meet with you and your deputy at your offices to map out a clear strategy to deal with what you aptly described as the triple challenges of poverty, inequality, and unemployment. These problems are bigger than one political party.
United Christian Democratic Party leader Ipusend Ditshetelo welcomed the investment of 300 million rand in infrastructure development, but she said it should not be used to make only some people even richer.
It sure should make South Africans excited. We earnestly hope that this huge commitment of money does not excite the minority entrepreneurs who will see opportunity to make more millions, while the rural poor are condemned to extreme poverty. We hope this amount shall not perpetuate the gross economic inequalities that we are already experiencing. It would have been comforting if the President had briefly outlined how the infrastructural development and commitment shall impact and improve on the standard of living for the rural poor. In a prior 2010, we saw a burst of infrastructural developments. Of course, we now have world-class stadia, hotels, and beautiful bridges, and we welcome the improvement. But the rural communities who constitute the majority of our citizens are still without roads, and their living conditions have not improved.
The DA Shadow Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Mr. Ian Davidson, welcomed the specific focus on job creation, but he said it was unfortunate that almost nothing had been said about the safety and security of South Africans.
The slow decrease in incidents of serious crime is commendable, and the efforts in this regard must be applauded. However, the number of serious crimes committed annually remains above the 2 million mark, where it has been for 17 years. This is unacceptable, more particularly as it is the poorest of the poor that feel the impact of crime the most. The well-being of our citizens and communities is not a matter of statistics, but speaks to the very fabric of our society and the efforts to accelerate economic development to address unemployment, poverty, and inequality. We require a bold new vision to ensure the safety, security, and stability of our society, and the creation of an environment in which economic growth and development can continue unhindered. This is our common struggle. Instead, we are veering towards a security state marked by this government's increasing obsession with the traditionally defined concept of national security. The vehement defense of the secrecy bill, controlling the courts, and legislative attempts at granting the intelligence services even greater powers is symptomatic of this obsession.
The Minister of Economic Development, Mr. Ebrahim Patel, said it was now the responsibility of government to implement the infrastructure development plan announced by the President. One of the key focus areas was to develop scarce skills.
We recognize and will address the skills challenge. We completed an audit of scarce skills in public institutions. The challenge is particularly in engineering, project management, finance, procurement and technical skills such as artisans, technologists and technicians. To address this, we developed responses such as a shared pool for utilizing scarce skills across and between public entities, rapidly increasing apprenticeships and practical training as Eskom and Transnet are doing now, and in the private sector using the National Skills Accord. A skills plan setting out the human resource requirements for every infrastructure project, attracting back South Africans with high-level engineering and project management skills who are working on projects elsewhere in the world, easing immigration rules in infrastructure-linked scarce skills categories, and developing partnerships with universities and other institutions in the built environment to produce the short and long-term skills needs of the infrastructure program.
Minister Patel said infrastructure development was also regarded as a training space for skills. Government will also have to address the issue of project management and regulatory delay challenges. Mr. Patel said the infrastructure program required the coordinated issuing of permits, licenses, and environmental impact assessments. It also required tight coordination between the three spheres of government and public entities.
We will therefore place legislation before Parliament during 2012 to address this in the form of an infrastructure development bill. In addition, we seek to improve cooperative governance. The PICC includes the premiers, the metro mayors, SALGA, and a number of cabinet ministers led by the President and the Deputy President. It is therefore a forum able to take decisions to unblock delays across the three spheres. We are developing focused project management systems and clear performance dashboards to identify the state of progress with bold programs to enable the three spheres to intervene early and decisively.
Mr. Patel added that in building the infrastructure, spending will have to be done smartly. Simply throwing money at it would not help to realize it.
A number of the components of the infrastructure plan have funding committed through the national budget or the balance sheet of state-owned enterprises. The infrastructure plan, however, requires reprioritization across government with a clear shift of spending from consumption to investment so that we lay the basis for our long-term prosperity, a matter taken up by Minister Gordon in the MTBPS. The IDC and the DBSA, working with the main state-owned enterprises and Minister Gigaba, will provide financial support within their mandate areas, creating a public-public partnership model to drive infrastructure development. The Presidential Infrastructure Summit will highlight opportunities open to the private sector. We will work with retirement funds on opportunities for long-term infrastructure investment that match their long-term pension liabilities to members. We will collaborate with international partners, including BRICS and the GCC countries, to tap capital from sovereign wealth funds and private investors. Honourable members, we acknowledge and will address the challenge of containing costs of the BOLD programme and combating corruption. Our experience in past programs showed high levels of collusion between contractors that drove up prices of supplies and services. We faced avoidable industrial action on some of the projects. We are therefore in discussion with the private sector and organised labour to conclude an integrity pact as part of a broader accord to address the need for competitive pricing, firm action against public and private sector corruption, and cooperative industrial relations.
We have more extracts from the debate on the President's State of the Nation address after the break. Stay with us.